Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the PDPreps podcast. It is Tuesday, October 31st, around 3 p.m. Happy Halloween for all of you who are dressing up. We obviously have not dressed up for this, but maybe
We
next
should
year, Gus.
have. We should have,
We
man.
probably should have, but maybe next year. He's Gus Morris. I'm Keenan and Doherty. If you've been around here before, you know how we do things. Recapping some of the week's highlights, as well as rankings, some other things, preview predictions, so on and so forth. Not the most exciting slate of games last week, but should certainly set things up for an exciting slate of games this week. But Gus, let's get right into it. Obviously, you were at the game of the week, probably the most anticipated, I would say, Egg Bowl in recent memory. Casa Grande coming up victorious in this one. You were there. Just kind of talk us through what happened.
Yeah, 28-3 Casa Grande beats their crosstown rivals Petaluma for the third straight year. Egg Bowl trophy is staying on the east side. Really fun rivalry this has been to follow the last couple of years, especially this year. I mean, like you said, I think the most at stake in this, in this Egg Bowl in a while. Both teams were 4-0 in the VVAL. Both tied for first place, coming down the stretch here, one game, obviously, this is the final week of the regular season we have coming up here, week 11. So yeah, I mean, a lot was riding on this game, and it was kind of going to be, fun to kind of see both these teams that have really kind of, rolled, Petaluma's, ended this game on a 4-game winning streak, big wins over, American Canyon. They put up a boatload of points, over the last month. Their rushing attack has been great. Casa Grande came in on a 7-game winning streak. They hadn't lost, since their season opener, against Cardinal Newman like 2 months ago. So kind of two teams on this, really fun collision course. But it was not. I mean, again, we both picked Casa Grande to win. I don't think either of us thought it was going to be this much of a lopsided game. I mean, we knew
Sure.
Casa Grande. We knew Casa Grande has, this really good defense this year. They've been a traditional kind of spread it out, air raid, style team the last couple of years, and defense hasn't always been, their strong suit. This year, totally different story. Absolutely shut down Petaluma's rushing attack. 104 rushing yards on the game is what I had Petaluma at. They came into this game averaging almost 400 over the last 4 games. They were averaging over 300 yards per game on the season. So season low in points by far. I mean, 3 points is far and away the fewest they've scored in a game this year, and then 104 yards. I mean, way, way, way off of their season average. But again, for as lopsided as this final score was, and as lopsided as the stats might sound, it was a close game at half. I mean, it was only 6-3. Petaluma actually, opened the game by taking the lead. Casa fumbled the ball on their first drive. Casa had 3 fumbles on Saturday. I mean, Petaluma won the turnover battle. Won the turnover battle. I don't know why that's so hard to say. 4-1, and yet so first turnover comes. First drive of the game. Petaluma gets it. Nice kind of chunk drive down the field, but then they kind of stall out. In the red zone, have to settle for a field goal. Take a 3-0 lead, and we're kind of thinking, okay, like cool, we got a game here. Casa comes right back, quick touchdown play, drive ending, with a quick score for Zach Carrera. He had a nice game.
Sure.
Star running back, for them. But and then second quarter, it was just a lot of nothing. I mean, 6-3 at the half. There wasn't a whole lot going on, I gotta say. I think both teams had pretty ample chances to score. Casa had a chance, I think, to extend it. I want to say midway through the second quarter. They had like first and goal at like Petaluma's 3, and Petaluma made a great stand and got the ball back. Turnover on downs, like I think at their own 1-yard line. So great stand there from Petaluma, and again 6-3 game, and you're kind of thinking, all right, both teams are really in this. Who knows. I'll say too, great atmosphere. I mean, at Petaluma High School. I mean, again, this Egg Bowl is, you were at the game last year, over at Casa. Stands are packed. The whole town really, really comes out for this. I mean, it's one of the, high school football is super fun for these kind of traditions and rivalries, and this is, example A, B, and C of why we kind of love, love the sport a lot. So great crowd, packed stands on both sides. Really fun atmosphere. And I mean, again, both teams are thinking, all right, like low scoring game, like, anybody's in this. And then second half, Casa just kind of puts the clamps down and runs away with it. They open with a quick scoring drive. Actually, it was kind of a weird play though. This is like, I want to say it was like kind of early midway through the third. They had yeah, Cade Ray, got, they got they were driving kind of into Petaluma territory. Cade Ray turned the ball over on a fumble. I think that was at that point the second or third fumble of the day for Casa, and it was like, Jesus, man. Um, Again, 6-3 game still at that point. Petaluma, again, second half, their offense just was non-existent. And again, big credit to Casa's defense. But after the fumble, they couldn't do anything with it. Punt it back. They get a nice long return. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead here, but I'm thinking of the next score that they have. But yeah, Cade Ray, first play after the fumble, Casa gives the ball right back to him, and he takes it 47 yards for a touchdown. So definitely a big redemption play for him there. But yeah, at that point, 14-3, and it's like, all right, Costa's kind of extending, like Petaluma, being a rushing team, not where they really, want to be. They triple option, offense. They eat clock. They have the ball for long sustained drives.
Yeah.
Down 2 scores, you're thinking, oh, danger zone. Petaluma needs to score here. They don't get it. I think they end up having to punt back to Casa. Kind of a weird little sequence here too, but they pump back to Casa. Casa gets a nice return. I think they get down to like Petaluma's 11 off the punt. And then Casa gets Petaluma then gets it's I want to say third turnover of the game at that point. They pick off Danny Mercado in the end zone. And again, it's like, all right, 14-3, and it's, a few plays go this way or that way, and this could be a very different game. It did not feel over by any means. And then 2 plays later, Petaluma fumbles the ball back to Casa.
Oh, jeez, Louise.
And it's like, okay, here we go. And then, yeah, Casa Grande takes advantage of that one, gets a 42-yard touchdown pass to Clint Ray. 20-3 at that point, closing minutes of the third, and that was kind of it at that point. I think sophomore Marcus Novoa had a 9-yard score. I think junior had a 9-yard score there late in the fourth, and that was kind of the game. But yeah, I mean, again, 28-3, not a score that we expected, but Costa's defense is legit this year. I think the first 6 games of the year they had allowed like 59 points. They had allowed Vintage and American Canyon, to put up some points. But I mean, again, even the American Canyon game, they held them to like 6 points, I think, or like that, something like in halftime. So
let's not go back there.
Yeah. But Costa's defense is legit. They had 5 sacks. 5 sacks on Saturday. A lot of those came in like late down situations, a 3rd down sack, 4th down sack. They were bringing pressure all day, and that usually doesn't work against a good a good rushing team like Petaluma. I mean, even like after the game, I was talking to Rick Christ, Petaluma's head coach, and he's like, yeah, we just couldn't pick up their blitzes, well today. And again, blitzing against a team that likes to run the ball, it leaves you open, for big plays. But again, big credit to Costa's D that they, filled up any of those holes and yeah, really, limited a really good Petaluma rushing attack. But yeah, 5 sacks, 2 for Oscar Cohn, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name again. Cooney, thank you. He also had a fumble recovery too, but Clint Ray had 133 receiving yards with a touchdown. Zach Carrera almost hit 100 yards, rushing with a touchdown, and then Danny Mercado, pretty surgical, I'd say. I mean, you were at the game too. He doesn't really kind of like jump off the like jump out, when you see him, but he's very controlled. He can play the game with his feet. He makes good throws. When he needs to, and he's some really good receivers that he's throwing to. So 233 passing for him with a touchdown and a pick. But yeah, I mean, Petaluma really not much to report on any of their ends. I mean, again, Chase Miller, their leading rusher on the year, he had over, I think, 1,200 yards, I want to say, coming into this game. Season low, 62 on 17 carries. So, yeah, I mean, big win for Casa. Again, third straight win for them over Petaluma. And, I believe they also clinched a share of the V-Bell title with the chance to clinch it outright this week against Sonoma Valley. I'd have to go back and check, but I can't remember the last time Casa – so Casa shared the league title with Vintage, I want to say 2 years ago that was, but I don't think they've had a run to an undefeated league title in a number of years. Yeah, last year was 2013 when Trent Herzog was still out there when they went 13-1. So they're closing in on some history here. 10 years since their last undefeated run to a league title. So yeah, definitely Casa on the verge of history here, but they've been really good this year. And again, you were at the game too, but yeah, I mean, anything kind of stand out to you from this game? I mean, you've seen Casa play, you've seen Petaluma play, and like I said, not the score we were expecting, but I mean, yeah, what did you see out there on Saturday?
Well, I'll tell you what did stand out, those white helmets that Costa decided to debut. That was
Those were
pretty.
fresh. Those were fresh.
Those are pretty fresh. But yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head here. It's weird to see Petaluma limited so offensively, considering what they coming into the game, well, what they were looking like. Last year or last week's episode, they were averaging how many yards rushing per game, and then they get limited to what would you say, 104?
It's like just over 100 yards rushing,
Yeah,
and they
just
came
over
in.
100 yards.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Casa just, we mentioned the last couple weeks, this 3-game gauntlet, if Casa can get through it. I mean, they passed all 3 tests with flying colors, I would say.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and one more test remains. Sonoma Valley, who's no slouch by any stretch of the imagination, they've been playing some great ball recently. But yeah, Casa just definitely looks like the class of the VVAL this year.
yeah.
And this was the game that really put them over the top.
Yeah.
If they hadn't proved themselves already. So, Casa making history, breaking the curse of that 3-third team, and now possibly undefeated in league. So, yeah, credit to the Gauchos. But man, I mean, again, we just got to go back, because I mean, the Egg Bowl atmosphere is just something you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
Especially like last year I was at Costa Stadium and it was all good, but there's something about the compact, the coziness of Petaluma Stadium, that where the sound just comes all the way. It was just amazing. Both student sections
Yeah.
are going crazy. Plus the fact that it was a Saturday afternoon game kind of helped. The whole town was out.
Yep.
So yeah, but credit to the Gauchos. I do think Petaluma could bounce back. They have a crazy test this week against Vintage, but we'll see how that game plays out. But yeah, class of the Vival, Gus. I think that's fair to say.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I mean, again, they've I think at the start of the year too, we had, I think we had some questions about kind of where they've stacked up amongst the series teams, and I forget where we
Losing
had
a
them in
lot,
our
yeah.
yeah, I forget where we had them in our preseason rankings, but I think we had them in the top 5, I want to say. And then after they they lost to Newman, we're thinking, okay, like maybe not as good, but they've just been as I mean, one of the hottest teams in the area this year. And yeah, I mean, they have a very good shot at going into playoffs at 9-1 and winners of 9 in a row, and like having a first round playoff game and being a top 3 seed in Division 3, and like yeah, well we can see I mean, again, I think everyone's kind of thought it's like, all right, Division 3 is kind of a 2-team race right now between Marin Catholic and Cardinal Newman. But yeah, Casa's been playing well, and yeah, I mean, I think a rematch between them and Newman. Newman won, I think, by 2 scores early in the year, but I think, a rematch this, in the playoffs could be a closer game. So
I totally agree.
We'll definitely see. But yeah, last thing on this game, but it's such a fun rivalry too. I mean, like I writing the game story or the game preview on Tuesday, going out to both teams, teams practices and talking to their coaches and players. Both coaches and players were like, oh, this is just one more game. It's not a big rivalry. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's just one more game. I think Costa was even saying, oh yeah, Vintage is our rival. Like we've been saying that for years. But then after the game, it's like there's so much celebrating going on, and this this game kind of does mean a lot for both communities. So I do love the kind of like subtle trash talk, whatever you want to call it, going in and afterwards, especially too. So.
Plus you did 200-yard walks, which is something we don't normally do too. So
yeah,
that just shows how big this matchup is.
Big game for sure. So glad we did that. But all right, enough of game of the week. We'll run through a couple other quick games here. But yeah, I mean, like you said, not a ton to write home about last week. I mean, I think we had a number of running clocks, I want to say, by halftime last week. It was kind of, a little depressing watching some of the scores. Like, yeah.
Just
45-0 at half, like 48-0, this and that. So, yeah.
Start the running clock immediately, yeah.
Pretty much. But we'll start with our other kind of big winner from last week, Ukiah, 48-28 over Piner. They officially clinched the North Bay League Redwood title. Their first league title in football since 1985. I remember when I heard that from from Ukiah guy, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's crazy. But then you think back, it's like, Ukiah has played in the MBL historically, against, teams like, Newman and, that this is before Windsor got good, but like, when
Yeah,
back in Monty's heyday, they were playing them all the time, when Santa Rosa was good, they were playing them. So, yeah, I mean, Ukiah has just kind of been this, a team that just isn't, it's always pretty consistent, but it's never that, it's hard to kind of beat, some of those upper echelon
for
teams from around here.
sure.
So Ukiah finally breaks through. Paul Cronin's first year. Yeah, I mean, 7 wins for them. They're 7, so their regular season is over. They're off this week. Yeah, they get to kind of rest up and like take a, I mean, it's, a week 11 bye is kind of interesting. I mean, it's like you kind of get to rest up and look
Absolutely.
at and look across the board and take a breath. And they've now clinched a playoff spot. We'll go into some of our division rankings and stuff. We'll kind of look at those, one more time
Later on.
here. But yeah, I mean, they have, again, as league champs, they've, officially qualified for the playoffs. They were probably a surefire in team anyway, but now they have officially clinched a spot. And again, depending on who their first round matchup is, they'll also probably get a first round home playoff game. So we'll kind of see how the seeding and stuff plays out. But yeah, congrats to Ukiah. Again, like I said, too, not really a close game. I think it was a running clock by halftime. It was like 48-7, I want to say, by half. And then I think Piner got a couple late scores, but yeah, I mean, Piner too, kind of now, they don't really control their own destiny now for the playoffs. So I think they need some other teams ahead of them to lose in Division 4 to sneak in, but it might be tough. So
Yeah.
we'll see there. But yeah, I mean, Ukiah, big congrats to them. Another team that we had some questions on of like, how are they going to look under Cronin's, in the first year? We knew they had some talent, but a lot of guys gone from last year's team. And yeah, I mean, St. Bernard's win, Maria Carrillo win, beating St. Vincent. Yeah, they've had some really strong, solid wins this year, and they've been clicking at the right time too. So should be a fun team to watch come the postseason.
Yeah, no, 100%. And leave it to the last year of the NBL Redwood, Gus, for them to win their first league title since 1975. Yeah,
85,
it's
85, yeah.
85, excuse me. Sorry. Got a decade off there. But yeah, no, you guys always had the talent. They've always had some size. They've had some big hits up there, always have. And and we were wondering what that missing piece was a little bit. We have been for multiple seasons, but hey, Paul Cronin comes in and just does what Paul Cronin does, I guess.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy though. Obviously, you covered him early on. We both covered him early on. Had some tough losses to some very high quality teams. Obviously, had 2 of their best players ejected week 0, which you were there for. So not easy as it ever is, but yeah, credit to you, Kai, for that one. All right, let's kind of move on. Gus, you kind of mentioned some running clocks here. One of them was Windsor and Annalee. Windsor won 48-7, running clock in the second half. Windsor led 28-0 after 1. Windsor starters played 1.5 quarters, which is always a good sign for coaches. Getting their starters rested up and hopefully avoiding those injuries. Hayden Anderson, TD reception, 56-yard touchdown run, 40-yard pick 6. Great game for him. Judson Anderson, surgical as always, 3 passing TDs. But now the clock turns and we have possibly the biggest matchup of the year on deck. We'll go into that later on because that's our game of the week. Don't want to spend too much time on it now. But definitely, I would say, Gus, that this is the first complete game from Windsor we've seen all year, without a doubt, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I talked to DJ Sexton after the game, Windsor's head coach, and that's kind of what he was saying. He was like, we had, probably the best focused and preparation that we've had, heading into a game. He's like, I don't know, I don't remember if he said all year or if he said, just recently, but I mean, again, Windsor has been, we'll talk about the Windsor-Newman game here in a bit, but I mean, just like Newman, I mean, Windsor's been just shellacking teams here over the last month. I mean, I don't think their starters, I'm looking at their last results. I mean, I don't think their starter played in the second half of the Eureka game or the Santa Rosa game or the Montgomery game or the Annalee game. So, especially at a time like this in the year where, injuries are starting to become a big thing, it's huge for a lot of those guys to kind of get, to not be in harm's way and to stay healthy, as the season kind of hits its most important stretch of the year. So, Yeah, I mean, again, we'll talk about the Newman game here in a bit for sure, but yeah, I mean, again, DJ was really happy with kind of their focus and how and their preparation. And I think he said that, part of that could be because of how big the game is this week. It's like they really kind of have to start picking it up now. There's no messing around. This is, the Newman game again. We've all had it circled all year. Big rematch. I mean, again, these two teams don't like each other. This is going to be a super fun game, but they
Don't
know
be
it's at stake
crazy.
here. They know what's at stake here, and so I think now they're really starting to focus up and yeah, play to the potential that we all thought that they could this year. So very excited for this week. We'll get into that later, but yeah, wins are definitely clicking on all cylinders this week. And same thing could be said for Newman. I mean, again, not much of a contest here, not a big surprise, 62-7 over Santa Rosa. It was 55-0 at halftime. I mean, again, just not really a contest, but yeah, I mean, again, we said, Newman or, Windsor's had some running clocks, in the last couple of weeks. Same thing with, Newman. I mean, Deanne's a running clock. St. Mary's, I don't think that was a running clock, but Montgomery, I believe that was a running clock. I think Annalee might have been a running clock. Santa Rosa running clock. So, yeah, I mean, again, Newman's defense showed up again. Total team effort today too, or last week too. 7 players scored touchdowns. They had 2 defensive touchdowns. They had 2 special teams touchdowns. I mean, really kind of an all that. And again, not a big surprise. I think Santa Rosa dressed like 17 players. They're, just not a very fair fight, I'd say, in this one. But, credit to, some of these of these Newman guys that, had good games. I mean, Jimmy McKenzie, I can speak. Jimmy McKenzie had a fumble recovery, big man touchdown, Eamon Kelly interception return, Zach Holman actually had his season low in rushing yards, so Santa Rosa can, I guess, hold their hat on that. But 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that's his first game of the year where he's been held under 100 rushing yards. But he only had 5 carries too, so I'm guessing he only played like maybe a quarter and a half or something like that. But yeah, Jonah Bertoli too, 56-yard punt return touchdown and a receiving touchdown, and then Madi Kamara had a kickoff return touchdown. So big team effort here. But yeah, I mean, like we've kind of said about both, Newman and Windsor. Neither of them, I mean, I think at this point they've avoided the injury bug pretty well. Although I know that I heard that Madi, I know I'm not going to. I heard that Madi did hurt his shoulder, and so I think he'll be out for the Windsor game. And then I know too that Sam Valenti, who was a Montgomery transfer, kind of a baseball guy, but he's big body athlete. I think he's been out for a while this year, then with a hamstring injury. So, but outside of that, I mean, both teams have stayed pretty remarkably healthy at this point of the year, which is not something that a lot of teams can say. So I think that should also make this week's matchup that much better. So, but yeah, Newman and Windsor both took care of business this week and are rolling into this, into the regular season finale, both undefeated in league and riding big winning streaks. So just how we all drew it up.
Yeah, season high in points for Newman, right? Scored 62.
Yeah.
I think that's the highest. Yeah.
Yep. I think so.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, their second highest was Danzo. They won 59-7.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving on. This was probably one of our closer games here. Justin Siena 31, Sonoma Valley 28. Huge playoff implications in this one. We'll kind of touch on that later when we do our divisional breakdowns. But Justin Siena coming away with a big win here. Some great performances, huge performance from the Justin Siena defense, especially later on. Dallas Logwood, that's one of the best names in the county as far as football goes. Dallas Logwood, man, reminds me of that Key and Peele sketch. Two fumble recoveries for him. Justin Siena defense had 7 sacks on the evening. So big credit to their defense, but their offense did play just as well. Drew San Giacomo, 22 of 30, 311 yards passing, 2 TDs. Thomas Malloy, 8 receptions, 161 yards. Justin Siena, we were wondering who was going to win this one, who was going to take it, because big playoff implications. But Justin Siena could be big confidence booster, especially heading into playoffs in a week or two. So Justin Siena, Gus.
Yeah, and also kind of with this, I think we talked about this a bit on last week's pod, but kind of a must-win game here for Sonoma Valley. If they didn't win, they would not be eligible for the playoffs. And unfortunately, with the loss, they're now 3-6 on the year. They're 1-4 against. They're 1-4 in league play, and they're 1-2 in their own division. So even if they beat Casa, this week, which would be a huge upset, they're not going to be playoff eligible. So just an unfortunate, way to go out for a Sonoma Valley team that, again, we think has a ton of talent. Hudson Giarita's great. Trent Oman's great. I mean, again, we can kind of go down the list, Peyton Ehrig. I mean, again, they have a number of guys who are very good players, but just a tough year. I mean, they had a couple, again, a 1-point loss to Alhambra early in the season. They played Vintage crazy tough again, a couple weeks or a week and a half ago. I mean, or the week prior, I guess. So, but this is kind of, the Jekyll and Hyde nature of some of these teams where it's like, hey, you only lose to a Vintage team by 3, and then, you go play at Justin Siena, a team that's newer, probably not even close in caliber as Vintage, and then you get down big early, and then you can't climb your way out of the hole. So, but still, I mean, not a bad year for Sonoma Valley. I know that they had aspirations of making the playoffs, but I think there's some good stuff here that they can build on, especially going in the next year with the whole league realignment. I think they should be in a good spot to take some more steps. So yeah, Justin Siena in for the Division 5 playoffs. Sonoma Valley likely out. But yeah, definitely an interesting result to kind of keep an eye on. But yeah, last game I think we'll touch on here before we get into our division breakdown and then all of our Week 11 preview and stuff is Rancho Cotati. Again, speaking of teams that were kind of maybe fighting for their playoff lives here, I don't think we had a lot of concern about Rancho missing the playoffs. But if they had lost to Montgomery, that they probably would have been in a lot of trouble. They took care of business 56-6 over the Vikings. Just kind of a runaway game here. Definitely a result that Monty needed, but yeah, they're now playoff bound for sure. And they finish out the season this week with Santa Rosa. So 2 kind of get right games after a couple tough losses. Heading into the Division 2 playoffs. I think they're on the lower half of the bracket at this point. So probably not going to get a first round home playoff game, but again, if Pruitt's kind of back, at least to as healthy as he'll be, that's going to be big for them going forward. Obviously, still no Potu Hale, but Gio Ortiz has been pretty good. Gio Martinez is stepping up, outside. So, again, guys go down, you got to have other guys step up, and so far they've had that to a certain degree. So, definitely a different team when Pruitt's healthy. So, I think these two, this Montgomery game and again playing Santa Rosa. This week, this coming week, I think should be good games for them to kind of get back on track heading into the postseason. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Totally agree with you. Jacob Pruitt only passed 4 times in that game and he didn't have 1 rush. So that's basically, in terms of health, that's the best you can ask for.
Yeah.
in terms of keeping Pruitt healthy as much as you can. But Gus, let's so those are kind of the games we wanted to just touch on a bit. But Gus, let's head into our divisional breakdowns here. Gus, some little changes here and there throughout our divisions. Just kind of talk us through it here a little bit.
Yeah. So again, we're just probably going to briefly touch on this stuff because I don't think there's going to be a lot of changes kind of going week by week, but there are a few that I think do bear mentioning. But starting as always with over here in Division 2, El Cerrito still number 1. I think they're 7-1 overall right now. Windsor number 2, El Cerrito number 1, Windsor number 2 at 7-1-1. Granada number 3, 6-3. Redwood out of the MCAL 7-2. They're a spot ahead of Rancho Cotati. Again, head-to-head win there for the Giants. Rancho is the 5 seed right now at 5-4. Heritage is 4-5 at the 6 seed. Vintage is 4-5 as the 7 seed, and Dublin is 4-5 as the 8 seed. So Livermore is also at 9. Foothill is not going to be eligible, but they're at 10, and then Berkeley will be eligible, and they're going to be 6-3 at 11 right now. So, again, like we kind of talked about, Rancho probably secured a playoff spot. Vintage probably did as well. They beat Napa last week. In big game action, pretty good. And I guess that is a game that we could have talked a bit about too. But yeah, Vintage. I think they won their 7th straight big game. They're at the annual Vintage Napa inner Napa high school rivalry there. So But yeah, Vantage I think is probably going to be playoff bound. 4-5 overall, 3-2 in league. They play Petaluma this week, which actually could be a pretty big game.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're 1-1 in their division. But yeah, I mean, looking around, I mean, I guess I will say the one team that probably will be sneaking in is going to be Berkeley. So again, they're 11 right now overall ranking, but they are also first place in their league. And again, league champions do get automatic berths. So Berkeley, I know while they're currently again on the outside of the top 8, which is the 8 teams that get in, they probably will be getting in, since they are 4-0 in their league and they're playing a team that's 4th place in their league anyway. So Berkeley probably will will get in there. So we'll see kind of who they knock out. If it's a Heritage, maybe Vintage, maybe Dublin. It just kind of depends on resumes and strength, and stuff like that. So we'll see kind of what the committee thinks, again, after this week's coming games. But the division that I'm very curious and kind of watching how this thing plays out is Division 3, like we've talked about. Marin Catholic _1, Newman #2, both 9-0. Casa Grande back up to 3. Los Lomas lost last week. They were #3, but then they lost to Acalanes. That was their first loss of the year.
It was a pretty lopsided loss too.
Yeah, I think Acalanes won by 20 or something like that, so it wasn't that close of a game. But Las Lomas back down to 4. Tamalpais at 5 at 6-3. American Canyon at 6 at 5-4. Bishop Odette at 7 at 5-4, and Ukiah actually dropped to 8 at 7-3. So no longer is that Newman Ukiah game kind of set up. So and again, I don't see Marin Catholic dropping out of 1. Although this is going to be very interesting to see how this kind of breaks down, because this week we have Newman playing Windsor, obviously, but then we also, over the MCAL, we have Marin Catholic playing San Marin.
On Saturday.
On Saturday. So San Marin is the #1 team over in Division 4. 9-0. They've had some, again, Marin Catholic has been, the dominant team in Marin for the last couple of years, but San Marin has really closed that gap in the last couple of seasons. So I think last year was even like a one score loss for San Marin. So this year's game is going to be one of the most hyped, I think, MCAL games in recent history. So again, if you're a big high school football fan and, go check out Newman Windsor on Friday, and then go down to Marin and check out San Marin Catholic on Saturday. Those should be 2 incredible games, and games of the year, I'd say, for in the North Bay. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm like, does a San Marin, like, if San Marin beats Marin Catholic, like, and then Newman beats Windsor, like, I kind of think Newman would probably go to #1 in Division 3.
I think that's the only case scenario. By the way, before we get into all this, keep in mind, folks, that the standings we have here aren't set in stone. These aren't the actual rankings. That'll happen after this Saturday, actually, on Sunday. Well, the NCS will get together, they'll do all this, and then they'll pile on together and decide all the rankings then. So this is kind of just a blueprint of what could happen, just based on the strength of schedules, everything like that. So keep that in mind as well as we're going through this. But sorry, guys. Yeah, I think that's the only scenario where Newman would jump #1 to Marin Catholic. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure what Marin Catholic's strength of schedule is versus Cardinal Newman's. I would assume it's a little bit stronger. But then again, like you said, Marin Catholic's been the class of the MCAL. So if San Marin beats Marin Catholic in the whatever, but in the big game Saturday, then who knows? I think that could be the only scenario, if there is a scenario, or Marin Catholic has already done enough to secure that 1 seed despite whatever happens. So who knows?
But I think it would be interesting. Like, I mean, if Marin Catholic wins and if Newman wins, like, does that win over Windsor kind of give? Does that give Newman enough over San Marin win? I don't know. So that'll be very interesting to kind of see how that plays out, if it does play out like that. But yeah, no, also thank you for pointing that out too. It's like, this is a the NCS does use kind of Cal Preps and Max Preps rankings and ratings to help with its seeding and making all the brackets, but it's not, I mean, again, like I mentioned over in Division 2, but like Berkeley, they're ranked 11th, but because of NCS, qualifying standards, they're probably going to get in because they're going to win their league. So that's kind of how, it's kind of a fun thing to like look at and like predict and stuff. And this will be probably pretty close to what it is, but it's not 100% set in stone, especially again, after, after the NCS, seating meeting happens on, I believe that's November 5th, I want to say, and then
Yeah, Sunday. This Sunday.
playoffs start, next week. So anyway, Division 3 should be very interesting seeing how it plays out. Same thing in Division 4. I think San Marin kind of has the top seed locked up though. Acalanes obviously, beat Las Lomas last week. They're still number 2. That hasn't really changed, I don't think, in a while. Even despite the loss.
Yeah, I don't think it will, because San Marin's got that head-to-head win over Acalanes too.
Exactly. And then Petaluma is staying pat at 3 despite the loss, and that's probably what you expect after losing to one of the top ranked teams in Division 3 in Casa. So Petaluma staying pat, Vallejo staying pat. Maria Carrillo also, we didn't talk about them, but they had a big win this week, non-league win over St. Mary's Albany.
Yep.
That probably, I know Carrillo was maybe flirting with like the bubble of D4, but that win probably secured them a spot. But I will say it'll be interesting to kind of see how this plays out down the stretch, because if you kind of go down the rest of the Division 4 rankings, you have Del Norte in there number 6 at number 6 at 6-2. Kennedy Fremont is also 6-2 at number 7. Tennyson is not going to be eligible because they're 2-7. I believe that's right. So they're not going to be eligible, but Tennyson is in there at number 8 right now. And they're 1-3 in their league. They haven't played anybody in Division 5, so I don't think a 0-0 record counts as a 500 record, when it comes to the playoff scenarios. And just to rehash that too, in order to be eligible for playoffs, you have to have either a 500 record, either overall, in league, or against teams in your own division. So Tennyson doesn't really hit any of those bubbles, again, unless 0-0 counts as 500. I don't know how that works, but so Tennyson probably not going to be in. So that kind of leaves maybe 2 spots open there. But yeah, I mean, I think the reason to bring this up is because Petaluma right now is ranked number 3, but there's a chance, again, since they play vintage this week, and there are a couple teams on the bottom half of that ranking, some of those bottom half teams could win their leagues, which again guarantees them a first round home playoff game. So Petaluma, despite being number 3 in Division 4, even if they, I think they kind of have to beat vintage this week to probably stay number 3. And even then, they could get screwed out of a first round playoff game because of how the playoff seeding and stuff works. But like Vallejo, they're number 4. They're probably going to win their league. Del Norte and Kennedy Fremont also could probably win their league. So I mean, you're going to have numerous league champs who could secure league titles and then first round playoff games. So that would be tough though, for Petaluma. I mean, to have to travel to do so well in league and then have to hit the road and play Del Norte 5 hours away up in Humboldt, that would be pretty brutal. But I mean, we'll kind of see how it plays out. But Division 4 could be an interesting kind of wrap up and finish here. So we'll be curious to see how that plays out this week. But all right, moving on to the last few divisions here. Not a whole lot to mention in these ones, but Division 5, 1 Miramonte, 2 St. Bernard Eureka, 3 Annalee, 4 Alhambra. I think that's pretty pat. Same thing with San Rafael at 5, Justin at 6, Sonoma Valley at 7, and then Terra Linda at 8. So same kind of thing. Sonoma Valley probably not going to make it. I don't think Terra Linda is going to make it either. But then looking on the outside, looking in, Piedmont is probably going to win their league. They're probably going to make it in. So let me see, what is Terra Linda's resume though? Oh well, Terra Linda could make it in. They are 1-1, against teams in their division. So maybe Piedmont sneaks in there as the 7 and Terra Linda is the 8. But either way, we could still have a number of North Bay teams getting in there in Division 5. It does kind of seem like it is just talking with some Division 5 coaches this year, it seems like it's a bit of an open race. I mean, Miramonte, I think, is still the class of it. St. Bernard Eureka is still good, but maybe a little more parity and room for room for some upsets outside of 1 through 4, like we've seen. So anything on D5 you want to mention, or just quickly on the D6 and D7?
No, I don't. Like you said, I don't think there's too many things to mention these last couple divisions. So just go ahead with D6 and D7.
So big thing in D6 though is St. Vincent, even though they won last week, is now no longer the number 1 team in Division 6. I think that's the first time that's happened all year. Moreau Catholic takes over at number 1. Again, we'll see how that kind of plays out, but they beat Tennyson pretty good last week, 42-12. So, yeah, I mean, we'll kind of see. I mean, against St. Vincent has 2 losses, one against Montgomery, which probably hurts them quite a bit, and then also against Ukiah, which not a great loss, but knowing that they're also, a league champion who they've beaten, I think that's not a terrible loss. So,
Mm-mm.
but still, interesting to see St. Vincent kind of out of that number 1 spot. I don't think we've seen that for 2 seasons now, in Division 7 or now in Division 6. So, yeah, we'll see how that kind of plays out, but. St. Vincent does play. They finished out the regular season this week against Maria Carrillo. Could be an interesting game.
Yep.
Again, Maria Carrillo. I mentioned Jekyll and Hyde. Teams. Earlier, the most Jekyll and Hyde team we've had this year.
I know. That's a great way to
I
put
mean,
it.
they had a great win over St. Mary's Albany. Last week. I think that we mentioned that briefly, but just some other kind of head scratching results. But hey, if good Carrillo shows up, then it could be a pretty fun, fun battle, fun game. So we'll see.
Shows up.
Good Korea, bad
I
Korea.
know, I
There
know.
are
No,
two
no, I
variations
gotcha.
of it. So,
I gotcha.
Anyway, on the Division 7, again, big result over in Division 7. We don't really cover much Division 7,
Yep.
D7, but Clear Lake, who we thought was untouchable, lost to Kelseyville. I think that's their first league loss in, I want to say, 2 or 3 seasons. Yeah, I mean, Kelseyville, I think beat them up pretty good. So I don't know if there were injuries or what happened, or but looking at the score, I mean, coming into this game, I don't think Clear Lake had been within. I mean, I think they had some relatively close games, like Middletown, was a 1-score game. Willits, was a 2-score game, but Kelseyville beat them by 28, which is like
42-14. That's nuts.
That's not what you expect out of this kind of matchup. So, again, I don't have a lot of details about what happened in that game, but just looking at the score, I'm like, what the hell? So something weird must have happened in that one. But Clear Lake, again, despite the loss, still number 1. Kelseyville moving up to number 2. Willett, St. Helena at 3-4, St. Patrick's Vincent at 5, Ferndale at 6. And then I did learn too that if teams don't meet any of the eligibility requirements that I talked about earlier, then they don't make the playoffs. So there's a very good chance that we could have a couple first-round buys here for some of these top teams, like who's again Barry and Christian.
I see.
So Barry and Christian actually probably could make it in because now they're 2-1 in their league. So even if they lose, I don't know if they have one more game or not, but even if they lose, their regular season finale, they'll still be 500 in league, so they can qualify. But Healdsburg not going to qualify, Cloverdale not going to qualify, Upper Lake not going to qualify. Hoopa Valley actually could sneak in there. They are 2-1 against their division, but that's probably it. So maybe we'll have some, a first round buy or two, but maybe not. Just kind of depends. So we'll see. But
yeah.
Anyway, again, thanks for bearing with us, through all that. But yeah, just kind of a little look and brief picture of what the playoff picture could look like. But again, we will find out for sure on Sunday, and we'll have you covered with that as well too when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's Gus, shall we move on to our week 10, week 11, whichever way you want to call it. We call it week 11, but week 11 rankings here. Not much movement, just one little switch here, but we got Cardinal Newman at 1, Windsor 2, 3 Casa Grande, 4 Rancho Cotati, 5 Ukiah. So top 5 stays the same as last week. Little switcheroo here at the 6 and 7 spots. St. Vincent moves up a spot to 7. Petaluma drops a spot to St. Vincent moves up to 6. Petaluma drops down to 7. Bubble, American Canyon, Vintage Annalee. Not too much to explain here. Pretty self-explanatory. Petaluma, St. Vincent switch after the Trojans Egg Bowl loss. And in terms of some of those bubble teams perhaps jumping back into the fray here in our top 7 rankings, forget about it because Petaluma owns head-to-head wins over American Canyon and Annalee, and they have a better record over Vintage, and they play this week. So pretty easy to discuss their guys.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, I mean, Annalee is going to sneak in here too, just because kind of going back and looking at their resume. They, that their 4 losses this year have come against all ranked teams. I mean, they lost to Newman, they lost to Windsor, they lost to Rancho, and they lost to Petaluma. So, and then I know that Montgomery obviously has that head-to-head win over St. Vincent, but they also have a loss to Napa, which is not looking which is kind of looking worse and worse every week. So yeah. I think that's why we're going to throw Annalee back in. They're also again positive win-loss record and only losing to the best teams in the area. So Some credit over there to the Tigers. But yeah, I mean, also fun, another fun kind of side matchup. But Annalee Montgomery do play this week, so we will find
Oh,
out
that's
who
good. That's
gets
right.
the
That's
battle for
right.
the bubble, the battle for the final spot.
Oh, that'd be great. We should have a trophy for that battle for the bubble.
Oh my god! Yeah.
All right, let's head into our preview slash predictions here. Um, so last week, here we go. You were 11-3. I was 10-4. You have got a game over me last week. Records heading into the final regular season week. You are 96-30. I am 94-32. So that means you have a 2-game lead over me here. Let's see here. Both got St. Helena wrong. They lost to Fort Bragg by 12. Both picked Sonoma Valley against Jensen Siena. That did not go our way. We split Maria Carrillo St. Mary's. You got that one. Um, and then we both got Cloverdale wrong. Cloverdale lost to Novato 20 to 12. Everything else we got right. But forget all of that because we are now heading into our week 11 prediction, starting with our no doubt game of the week. If the VVAL's most anticipated game of the year was last year, the Egg Bowl, this is no doubt the NBL's most anticipated game, Windsor at Cardinal Newman, Friday at 7 p.m. I will be there covering this one. We're splitting this one, Gus. You're going with Cardinal Newman. I'm going with Windsor. I mean, Newman coming into this game 9-0. Windsor on a 7-game win streak, 7-1-1. This is probably could definitely be the most anticipated game of the season, Gus.
I think it's without a doubt the most anticipated game of the season. I mean, I think this is the most anticipated game in Sonoma County all year.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we've mentioned it at length. These two teams have, this rivalry has been, one of the best growing ones the last couple seasons across all sports. I mean, baseball,
Volleyball,
basketball,
basketball,
volleyball, football. I mean, yeah, it's
the whole
like
9 yards.
every like big sport. It seems to always come down to these two teams, and we're here again. If you watch this pod, if you're familiar with Sonoma County sports and football, then you know what happened in this game last year. Defensive battle. Windsor gets a last second touchdown. Controversial, some people call it. I know Newman people are still upset about how that game ended. A PI call that gave Windsor kind of one last play, literally at Newman's like 1 yard line with no time left on the clock. And yeah, Newman, Windsor scores it, makes the PAT and wins 14-13. So as dramatic as it gets, this year, again, this is going to be a freaking war. Newman undefeated this year, 9-0. Both teams are unbeaten in league. Windsor 7-1-1. They had those, the early season loss to Escalon, which doesn't look too bad because Escalon is very, very good.
Yep.
And then they had the tie against Campo. Campo, does have a loss now to Las Lomas, so maybe that game took a bit of a hit. But then again, Newman hasn't had the toughest schedule, I'd say, this year. Again, they beat Vintage. Vintage is 4-5 right now. They beat Vacaville. That still probably is looking like one of their best wins. They outlasted a banged up Rancho Cotati squad. Second half rally.
Casa opener.
Casa too. That's right. Thank you. Casa is looking like like a good win as well. But I mean, on the season though, looking at the league scoring differentials, neither team has really been challenged much. Windsor has a scoring differential of 190-46, and Newman is 193-41. So very evenly matched teams. Windsor was again our preseason number 1. Newman, I think, was our preseason number 2, maybe even number 3. I think behind Rancho. I can't remember that far back, but Newman kind of took over that top spot, I think, in week 3 after those that kind of weird start for Windsor, and they haven't given it back since. So 9-0, 7-1-1. Teams don't really like each other. Players don't really like each other. This is a pretty fierce rivalry, and we are both expecting again a packed house at Newman on Friday night. I had sold out the whole 9 yards. People lining the stands. All the above. So
get there early if you're planning.
Yeah, if you're gonna go, get there early for sure. So. I am picking Cardinal Newman. I know that you're going to be at the game, but I fully anticipate you to hear some for you to hear some smack talk on my behalf from the Windsor
Oh,
sideline players.
jeez.
But yeah,
Oh, I thought you were going to say smack talk between student sections because you know that's going
oh,
to be a thing.
that too for sure, absolutely. But yeah, I'm picking Newman. I mean, again, I think Windsor has a ton of talent. I think that they are loaded, at all their skill positions. But I think this game is going to come down to the line, and I think Newman has the advantage there. Newman has had one of the best defenses all year. Again, Windsor has as well. They've been playing much better the last couple weeks. I don't think this is going to be a runaway game in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be
Hmm.
tight. It's going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes. But like I've been saying all year, high school football a lot of the time comes down to who has the better line and who plays the better defense. And I think the answer to that question in this matchup is Newman. So I think it's going to be a heavy dosage of Zach Homan. Newman just has some crazy big bodies up front. Windsor has again been playing better, but I just don't think that they have the physicality up front. To kind of match up, with a really strong, big, Newman team. So yes, I think Windsor has more weapons. Yes, I think Hayden Anderson and Ananias Walker and Joseph Campbell and Gunnar Erickson are absolutely going to be big factors in this game. And again, neither team has really been challenged over the last month. But again, I think when it comes down to it, that line is going to be the deciding factor. And I think the advantage there goes to Newman. So
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on some points, but then I'm also going to agree to disagree here. I think I do agree it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be as close it could be. I mean, I don't know if anything could be as close as last year, 14-13 or whatever it
right.
was, but it is going to be close. No doubt about that. Um, I it's weird because obviously the question coming into this year for Windsor was their line, right? And you just mentioned Newman's line, but Windsor's line has been tested. I do think that Escalon game was a big indication of that. And Escalon has always had a very very talented solid line.
Yeah.
So and keep in mind for that game they didn't have Ananias Walker, they didn't have Lonzo Arterberry on that line. They didn't have any of those talents as well. So I think it took a minute for Windsor's new blood to get in, but I think, like you said, they're firing at all cylinders. I mean, this could be the toss-up of the year, to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
I think Windsor edges this one out. Um, so we'll see. I mean, we will see what happens because this is going to be so much fun. I'm excited for it. I'm sure everyone else is excited for it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I'm going Windsor, you're going Newman. I think it's only fair that we split this one, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. But yeah, buckle your seatbelt, folks, because
It's gonna be crazy.
this Friday is going to be nuts.
Yep.
But Gus, that's not the only pretty solid Friday game on our slate. We also have Vintage versus Petaluma at Memorial Stadium, Gus, as well.
Yeah, and I think we talked a bit about some of the stakes and kind of where these teams are at right now. Kind of earlier in the pod, Vintage is they had that again that kind of weird, they had that weird game against Sonoma Valley a couple weeks ago where they like
Yeah.
barely snuck it out. But then again, last week, they kind of rolled back to form and they took care of Napa pretty handily, 54-19. So I'm picking Vintage in this game. And I know that that might be an unpopular pick amongst some of our readers, but I kind of look at Petaluma's defense and it has they've Petaluma has been scored on quite a bit this year. I mean, again, they gave up 38 points to Napa, they gave up 32 points to American Canyon, they gave up 26 to Sonoma Valley, 42 to Murray Carrillo. So there are games where Petaluma's defense has been, I guess, I'm trying to find the right word here, but I guess gashed for lack of a better term. I
Yeah.
don't know. I was trying to find a nicer adjective there or a nicer word there, but couldn't quite come to me. But I mean, again, they've been scored on before. But why they're so good is because their offense has been so great. But I think we saw that last week against Casa, facing a pretty stout defense, they couldn't get much rolling. And I think Vintage is kind of in that same boat. I mean, again, the Vintage Casa game was pretty close, came down to again that last second kind of freak, fumble recovery, last second touchdown. But yeah, I mean, I think Vintage again, despite some of their faults and their not the best year for them. I mean, again, 4-5 is definitely I'd say not a good year for Vintage, but I think despite all that, they still have a very solid line, and they're deep too. That's one thing
Yeah.
that Petaluma does not have. I mean, they're running like mid-20s guys. I want to say for each game at this point, and I think Vintage rolls like 50, 40 plus 50 deep. So when you have bodies, especially at this point of the year, is huge. And I think that again, even if you don't have all your starters up front, even if you have bigger guys who are up there, I think that's going to be a difference. So I'm picking Vintage. I just think that they're again, I think both teams also know that they need wins here heading into the playoffs to kind of build some momentum. Petaluma wants to avoid, what happened last year, where they kind of scuffled a bit at the end of league play and then kind of, limped into the playoffs and then had a first round exit. So I think that they know that, hey, a loss here, they want to avoid that. But Vintage again is going to be a tough test. So I'm going to pick Vintage in this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Petaluma. I think they do have a bounce back game. I know they're a little banged up, but this they need something going into playoffs, and I think this could be a win over Vintage. So I'm going with Petaluma here. It's crazy though. You would say Vintage with 2 league losses. That's like unheard of, especially in the VVAL. So yeah. It hasn't happened a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna go Petaluma here. But yeah, we're split on this one as well. We're split on this game, but the one game I don't think we're split on at all is St. Vincent at Marie Creo, 7 p.m. We kind of touch on this a little bit. We're expecting a closer game than people think. We don't know what Creo is going to show up, but because Creo is so up and down, we have no idea. But I think St. Vincent gets him again. I do think St. Vincent has kind of accepted that they're not going to be league champs this year, especially after Ukiah won last week. So the best thing St. Vincent could do is roll in the playoffs as best they can. So Mustangs here, Gus.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, like St. Vincent was saying, kind of after, they lost to Ukiah a couple weeks ago, that, basically cost them, the league title. But they were saying it's like, the league title would have been nice. It was one of our goals, but it's not our big goal. The big goal is to win an NCAA championship game. Big goal is to get back to a NorCal bowl game. And again, those goals are still very, very, very much in reach. But, again, you don't want to be heading into the playoffs, as losers of 2 of their last 3. So, but again, I think like we said, St. Vincent, despite some of their stumbles, this season, again, that loss to Moncton was uncharacteristic. I think Paul Cronin, leading that crazy, second half comeback in the Ukiah win. I think some of those games are sort of blips, for St. Vincent. They went up to Fortuna, got a big win up, against Fortuna. They got a big win over St. Bernard's, also on the road. So St. Vincent is still very good. I still think that they are the team to beat in D6, despite kind of what the rankings are. And I think that they know again, just like Petaluma Vintage, I think that they know the importance of this game and what it would mean to get a win here going to playoffs. So, again, I also kind of think it should be a close game. I don't think it'll be a runaway, but I will say too, I don't think Korea matches up super well with St. Vincent. Again, big running team, wing team, they love to, put the ball on the ground, with guys like Wyatt Olson, and St. Vincent has a very, very good front 7. Could be a tough matchup for them. And I think that's probably the big reason why I'm picking St. Vincent in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so those are kind of the games that we wanted to touch on, do a little bit more previewing of. We're going to go through the rest of the slate here, make our predictions. Gus nailed the battle for the bubble. Montgomery at Annalee Friday at 7 p.m. We're split in this one as well. Gus, we're going to have some fun this week. We're splitting all these games. Montgomery at Annalee Friday at 7 p.m. You're going with Montgomery. I'm going with Annalee. I think their run game is just going to be too strong for Monty. I think Ben Stewart's been running the heck out of the ball this year. So I'm going with the Tigers here at home. But you're taking Montgomery on the road.
Yeah, Montgomery's kind of playing for their playoff life right now. Again, I know a win doesn't guarantee them getting in, but I think it would help. It would go a long way into getting them in. But again, I think that ship might have sailed. But I just think that Montgomery just has too many athletes. Guys like Isaiah Wright, Aiden Presser's, is really good. Amasi, Robert Kwaka, really, really fun to watch, running back. So yeah, I just think that, with these two teams, I know that Annalee has definitely had their fair share of injuries. as well. So yeah, I think that Montgomery just has too much athlete or too many athletes and too much speed on the outside. So yeah, maybe Antlee's running game is better, but I think this could be a shootout, which could be kind of fun. And I think if it is a shootout, I think Montgomery has the advantage there. So that's why I'm going Monty.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Rancho Cotati at Santa Rosa, Friday, 7 p.m. Rancho Cotati in this one. I think they get another win, boosting with their playoff chances, or adding to that playoff resume. So Rancho Cotati in this one.
Yeah, I don't think this should not be much of a game. I mean, again, Senators addressed 17 guys for their game last week, and yeah, I mean, Rancho is still very, very, very good. Again, despite maybe a quote unquote down year for them. So yeah, Rancho in this one by quite a bit, I think.
Healdsburg at Pioneer, Gus, your Greyhounds in a big rivalry game, Friday at 7 p.m. Uh, I think it actually might be a little bit closer than people could imagine, or at least as in the last couple of years. But I think Pioneer still takes this one for another year. Looks like you have the same.
I wish I shared your confidence. I do not. I
How
mean,
is it
this is
that
gonna.
I have the confidence in your Greyhounds? Come on, Gus.
I'm
Come
just
on
a
now.
realist. I'm a realist here. I've accepted my fate long ago. Yeah, I mean, this game is at Pioneer. Pioneer's not feeling too good again, especially after last week's big loss at Ukiah. I think they might score a lot of points in this game, especially at Pioneer. Senior night, last game of the regular season, probably not making playoffs. They want to go out on top. So I think Pioneer by a lot.
All right. Please, Gus. All right. All right. Cloverdale at Clear Lake, Friday at 7:30 p.m. Um, Man, poor Cloverdale there. You get in a tough situation here. Clear Lake is going to be absolutely fired up after that loss to Kelseyville. They
Yeah,
come,
I didn't
they
even think about
come,
that.
they come back home and have to play Cloverdale, who's definitely in a rebuilding year. Clear Lake by a good amount of points here, Gus. You say the same.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I mean, again, unless there's some like weird injury that we don't know about with Clear Lake, like that explains why they lost by 28 to Kelseyville. Yeah, this is going to be just like the Pioneer Hillsburg game, very very one sided result for Clear Lake. So yeah, just a tough year for Cloverdale. Hopefully they can bounce back next year. We love our guy Taylor Galloway over there, but just a tough year. It happens. It's high school football. You can't be good every year. So, but yeah, Clear Lake by quite a bit in that one too.
All right, Kelseyville at St. Helena, Friday at 7:30 p.m. Kelseyville coming off their gigantic win over Clear
Mhm.
Lake, especially for playoff implications and/or NCL1 implications as well. I don't think they have any hangover of that game at all. I think they come into St. Helena's house, and St. Helena's kind of had an up and down year as well. Kelseyville in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Kelseyville has had a really strong year, and I think they could be a pretty tough out in Division 7. And I think that again, if Clear Lake and Cloverdale or Clear Lake and Kelseyville match up again in the D7 title game, I think it could be a really fun game. I mean, Kelseyville's two losses this year came by 7 points to Middletown and by 2 points to Willits. And then again, they beat the number one team in Division 7 and Clear Lake pretty handily. So Kelseyville is playing some really good ball here at the end of the year, and yeah, I kind of same thing. I think this is going to be a Kelseyville runaway. So Kelseyville in that one.
All righty. Justin Siena at American Canyon, Friday, 7 p.m. Justin Siena coming off their huge win over Sonoma Valley. Unfortunately, they got to follow that up with a tough American Canyon squad. American Canyon coming off their bye from last week. They're going to be re-energized. They're going to be fired up, considering that going into their bye week, they just lost to Casa.
Yeah.
So American Canyon in this one, love the atmosphere over there at the Wolf Den. Yeah, Justin Siena is just going to have a tough time. I think American Canyon gets him.
Yeah, I mean, just another kind of big mismatch here. American Canyon is just a better team. I mean, again, despite kind of Justin, doing some good stuff last week against against Sonoma, I think this is a pretty convincing American Canyon win.
Yeah, Casa Grande at Sonoma Valley, Friday, 7 p.m. Sonoma Valley could play spoiler, obviously, has a chance to. But if we know anything about Casa, they're pretty good at not overlooking opponents at all. Casa Grande 1 win, VVAL champs, the final VVAL champs. So I think this goes Casa's way by at least a couple scores, possibly. But who knows? Either way, we're both going with Casa Grande.
Yeah, kind of same thing as the last couple of games, but yeah, just kind of a mismatch. And again, I don't think Casa is going to miss on a chance here to take care of business. They've had a very kind of business-like approach to this whole year. Just as whenever we've talked to them, it's been very focused and very they know their goals and they know what they have to do to achieve them. So I don't think there's a letdown spot here. I think that they win.
Yep. LCL and at Calistoga. Eight man action, couple 8-man games to round this thing out. So LCL and at Calistoga Friday at 6 p.m. LCL and tough first year in the 8-man circuit. We're taking on Calistoga team that's been having a little bit of a down year, but still a very accomplished and polished 8-man program. Calistoga in this one.
Yeah, Calistoga definitely been on the tough side of a couple of games last couple of weeks, but they've played some very, very good teams too. So yeah, LC again, first year kind of back with football, just a bit of a struggle. It is what it is. But yeah, Calistoga is a better team here, so they're gonna win.
Yep. All right. Our Roseland University Prep at Laytonville Friday, 6 p.m. Gus, our RUP, man, they are still rolling. I'm not sure if they clinched the title last week or they can do it this week. But either way, they still take care of business here. I still think they beat Laytonville by a good 2-3 scores here.
I
RUP.
Yeah, I believe they did clinch. I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now, and RUP is against they're 9-0, they're 5-0 in league. John Sweat is second place 4-1, and RUP has a head-to-head win over them. So I think RUP has a head-to-head win over all of these teams, but I think outside of Laytonville. But yeah, I mean, just looking at, I mean, the Knights have been really good and really fun, and I'm kind of
Yeah,
like. I kind of want to get out and check out some 8-man playoff games next week. I think that could be a lot of fun looking at
that'd
kind of
be
how
great.
RUP stacks up. Yeah, so we'll see. But I mean, again, I think that RUP takes care of business, and I mean, again, for a program that's only been around for again 4 or 5 years, to have a potential for a 10-0 season is nuts.
Yeah.
So great for them to do this. And then again, I believe it's not they're 9-0. I mean, again, they lost to Crystal Springs Upland earlier in the year, but that game is now turned into a forfeit win for RUP. So I don't again, we don't quite know what happened there if there was a
That caused
ineligible.
all sorts of commotion on the PD Preps podcast.
We were shook when we saw that. We are like, what the hell just happened? So, but yeah, no, RUP has been great this year. I think they carry it on, and I think they close out the regular season strong. And yeah, man, 10-0, good for them going into next,
RUP,
into the
man.
playoffs, hopefully. Yeah, so.
Roseland University Prep. All right, so that rounds out our football coverage for this episode. Got some other sports we want to talk about postseason wise and coming up here. Obviously, coverage area has 3 teams remaining in the NCS semifinals across 2 divisions actually. And Windsor will rematch Redwood for the 3rd time this season. The 3rd-seeded Jaguars will take on 2nd-seeded Giants in a semifinal tomorrow. That is Wednesday. We are recording on Tuesday. So by the time you're watching this, it'll be, I guess, tonight. But they'll be facing off. And then Cardinal Newman and Justin Siena, the top 2 teams in Division 4, they will be in a semifinal action on opposite sides of the bracket. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. Because if they win, I believe they play Saturday in the NCS championship games. Not sure when the last time we had a area team go to the NCS championship game in volleyball, if ever. So
Well,
you know.
I'm gonna stop you there. Newman did it 2 years ago. They won.
Oh,
I
okay. Well,
believe they
never
won
mind.
years before. Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Well, sorry for making it as dramatic as possible, but yeah. So that's what's happening on the volleyball circuit here. Pretty exciting that we have 3 teams left. Tennis, girls tennis. Caroline Beard won the NBL singles title in pretty easy fashion, not losing a game all season long. The Monty standout now moves on to NCS championships, which are happening November 13th and 14th locally in Santa Rosa, Gus, at La Cantera. So that'll be fun to see Caroline Beard try to take home the NCS crown. Last year she was the number 1 seed, lost in the final. But now NCS is coming local here, Gus. So that'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. A couple other things that I guess we'll check off here, but shout out to the Newman boys water polo team.
Oh, big shout out, yeah.
They just won the VVAL title. I think that was they've only had, I think, a program. I mean, again, don't quote me on this, but I think they've only had a program for a couple of years now. And they, yeah, I'm pretty sure they ran through the VL undefeated, if I'm not mistaken. 13-1, sorry, excuse me. So, I mean, still, but their only loss of the year, or their only loss of league, I believe, came against Ukiah, and then they came back and they beat Ukiah 7-5 kind of later on. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, shout out to Newman, boys water polo. They're in the NCS playoffs this week. They're playing Livermore. I believe that's tomorrow, actually, at 6:30. So another kind of game to add to our roundup list for tomorrow evening. But yeah, they're Newman. Shout out to Newman boys. Boys water polo. And then a quick note too on cross country. We have the league championship meets coming up for the VVAL and the MBL Oak and Redwood this week. MBL Redwood is going to be at Spring Lake. I think I'm starting around like 3:00, 3:30. Oak is going to be on Friday. I will actually be out there at that. I don't think I'll be covering any football games this weekend. I think I'm going to be sticking around with with some roundup duty. Just trying to kind of get a handle on what's going on. But yeah, I'll be checking out MBL Oak football, or I'm sorry, MBL Oak cross country on Friday. Should be a really fun event and meet. I know that Hannah Thompson, the Montgomery Stars, I'm pretty sure she'll be aiming for the Spring Lake record. I think Julia Stamps set that. I think in like 94 or something. So yeah, she's gotten close to it. I think she's like 5 or 6 seconds off, but she's number 2 all time, and I think she's trying to break that. I maybe this weekend too, so it could be fun to watch. And then yeah, VVAL is going to be on Saturday at Spring Lake as well. But yeah, it should be again kind of last time all these teams will kind of go head to head, as far as regular season competition goes, and then week after that we'll have kind of the first qualifying stages for the postseason, and then after that we'll have the NCS championships, which are always really exciting. So, and then yeah, state is going to be in, I want to say, 4-ish weeks. So.
Already getting
Yeah,
to it. That's already getting down to it, man.
I mean, again, we've said it every week, but it's like, oh, week 5, week 6, week 7. Now we're week 11. So final week of the regular season for football, and everything else is kind of winding down as well. So fall season's flying by. We're already getting, emails and texts about football or about basketball season starting up, soccer season starting up pretty soon. So one thing at a time, people, but we'll get to all that, eventually as well. So I think that's about it. But yeah, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, one more thing. Keep in mind, over the next couple episodes, or I'm not sure when we'll get him on, but our new Napa sports reporter, Jordan Lattimore, is going to be
Yes.
joining the podcast here in the next couple weeks. So keep an eye out for that one. Great guy, he's doing a great job. So be a great addition to the PDPreps podcast. Now making three beautiful faces instead of just two. But other than that, I think that's all we have for you guys this week. Again, packed slate of fall action here this week and next week as well. So keep looking at the updates. We got our Twitter handles down below, as well as our website down below as well. So again, thank you guys for watching, listening, however you consume this content, and we will see you next week.